Good morning. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here to Facing the Mirror, Unlearning Our Conditioning as White Women. And if you're here, go ahead and pop in the chat your name, where you're joining us from, and how you are doing. I am your host, Karen Fleshman, joining from the unceded traditional territory of the Ohlone people, also known as San Francisco, California. And I am the founder of Racy Conversations and of the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition. And my purpose on this planet is to unite women across difference so we can secure our collective safety and freedom. And I'm so delighted today to be joined by Jenny Dahl, my dear friend in Denver, Colorado. Hi, Kate from Detroit. We're so glad you're here. Thank you. Hi, Catherine from Berlin. Oh, my goodness. Thank you for tuning in. Yay. This is so exciting. So, Jenny, would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly. Hi, Karen. It's great to see you. So my name is Jenny Dahl. I am joining from the unceded lands of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho people, otherwise known as Colorado. I live in Denver with my two kids and our dog Lily, and currently we are sitting for two parakeets of our neighbors. So the house is very busy, but I'm super excited to be here today and really excited to talk to you more about our anti-racism work together.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. And that's something else we share in common. We're both divorced moms of two kids. Our kids are similar ages and they love each other. We had so much
Yeah.
fun when we all hung out together. And
Mhm.
I think, yeah, well, we'll get into that as we go along. But I think, why don't we just start there? To me, it is unimaginable that I would have gone on this anti-racism journey had I not split up from my husband. I
100%.
think that that marriage took up so much of my mental and emotional bandwidth and shrunk me so much
Mhm.
that I would not have had the fortitude to go in this direction, and I'm curious how that lands with you, Jenny.
I couldn't agree more. I've spoken with friends who've gone through the divorce or friends who are currently going through divorce situations, and I liken it to, the the tempering of metal under heat and pressure. Divorce sends you through that journey, and it can be uncomfortable, but the learning on the other side is just worth its weight. And in fact, I have a phoenix tattoo on my left arm, to remind me of that journey and to remind me how
Oh,
much stronger I am on the other side. So I completely agree. I would never have undertaken this journey or felt like I had the space to, if I hadn't gone through my divorce journey first.
yes, and for me, it's also it was really for me, it all culminated in 2014
Mm,
with Ferguson. Okay, so
yeah.
I had been miserable in my marriage for a very long time, and I wanted to leave, but I couldn't garner enough energy
Hmm.
to go.
Yeah.
And then the summer of 2014, I decided this is it. And when I saw the Black Lives Matter protesters stand up to tear gas in Ferguson, in support of Mike Brown, that was a big turning point for me too in my anti-racism journey. Like, I had already started thinking about this, and really, I'd always worked in communities of color. I'd always worked in organizations where white people were the minority, lived in cities where white people were the minority, worked for women of color. I've been sort of on this journey,
Yeah.
but, it was one thing to think about it in the society, it was another thing to think about it for myself,
Mm.
And yeah, and so when Darren Wilson wasn't indicted for killing Mike
Mhm.
Brown, that hit me really hard.
Yep.
And that was that moment a couple weeks after that when I went out to brunch with 2 young Black women, and, I started talking about how shocked I was that Darren Wilson wasn't indicted, and they
Mm.
were like, "How could you be shocked? Like, you are
Yeah.
clearly not paying attention."
Yeah.
And that was that moment when it all locked in, like, "Oh my god," you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And that was after that conversation, I could never see the world the same way, but it was all during that same time period, and it's
Yeah.
interesting because when you look at the history, the advances in women's rights in this country always follow advancements in Black people's
Mm.
rights,
Mm.
and it's always the Black people who fight to
Mm.
get their rights advanced, and then women kind of benefit from that,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? White women kind of benefit from that without actively having participated
Mm.
in those struggles, and yet we still will not unite across difference with our Black sisters. Anyway, I this isn't about me, this is about you, but I'm just curious how all that lands, and with
Yeah.
folks who are watching us, does that
Yeah.
land with you? Do you feel like, do you feel that you have the personal bandwidth to go on the anti-racism journey, or are you so consumed with your own life, your own family, that you don't have the capacity to
Yeah.
expand?
Well, and I think it's important to say too, like there's no shame if you say I'm overloaded. I
Correct.
like right?
Correct.
Like we all have so much on our plates. And as I listen to you tell your story, Karen, and I'm familiar with most of it, I'm sort of maybe on the flip side of that a little bit. And I really began my anti-racism journey, as much as I hate to say it, once George Floyd was murdered. That was my sort of smack in the face, and holy crap, I have to figure out what is going on here and what role have I played. And at the time, I was invited to join a cohort of an organization called Race to Community, and is indirectly how I met you. And I just remember all the emotions of just moving through the discomfort. And like, one of the things we're going to talk about is what surprised me. That was a big surprise for me, was just the like amount of breathing that I had to do to move through feelings of like, why didn't I know this? So my own shame, why did I never know this? And then anger and resentment at, why did they never teach me this? And then look how I've participated in it unknowingly over the years. And then just like that, I have to stop this. Like I have to figure out how to change it within myself, but then um also help others change as well. Because I think it's the one of the another surprising thing to me was, just once you see it, you can't unsee it,
Mm.
right? And it's
Yes.
it's all around you. And like, I make the joke that it's not 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, it's 2 degrees of white supremacy culture. It's like,
Mm.
it's really easy to say, well, because this happened and then this happens because of white supremacy, right? So it's a very easy jump to make. And then as a white woman, just understanding that the discomfort means you're doing it right.
Mm.
It means you're on the right path. The other analogy I have is when you're exercising, they say things like, push through the discomfort, keep going, because that's where your muscles build. That's how you gain fitness. It's similar in this work. You know you're doing it right when you push on something and go, wow, that's bringing up thoughts for me and feelings for me. Okay, why? Where is that
Mhm.
coming from? So it's been super interesting. But I back to the shame piece though. Again, I think as white women, um, especially like in our Gen X generation, there was a lot of shame that we learned. Just
Mm.
for a multitude of reasons across a multitude of spectrums. There was a lot of shame that we learned, and learning how to kind of metabolize that and move through it in order to face this work, I think is super critical.
Bell Hooks said shame is the number one tool of the patriarchy,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
And Audre Lorde taught us the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. It's
Yes.
interesting because I've been thinking a lot, and I wanna pull in some comments as well, from our
Yeah.
viewers, but
Yeah.
before we go there, I've been thinking a lot about, The Handmaid's Tale. I was a late comer to The Handmaid's Tale, and then I
Mhm.
binged it, the whole thing,
Yes.
and the way shame is used in The Handmaid's Tale, when the handmaids will sit in a circle, whose fault? My
My
fault.
fault. Mhm.
My fault. My
Yeah.
fault. And so you're overwhelmed with your guilt and shame, which causes you to never question the system. And the
Yeah.
one of my main points that I wanna get to white women is it is not our fault that we were
Right.
born and raised in patriarchal white supremacy and indoctrinated into those beliefs by our parents, by our schools, by our faith organizations, by our communities, by our peers. It's literally all around us.
Yeah.
While it
Yeah.
is not our fault that that happened, it is our responsibility
Yes.
to
Yes.
recognize it, to grapple with it, and to not perpetuate it to our kids, our communities, our faith institutions, to work to transform all of those things as we transform ourselves. And the personal transformation is extremely important. And we also have to grapple with it in the wider world. The
Mm.
personal
Yeah.
transformation is very important, and the societal transformation
Yes.
has to happen too. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's
Agreed.
see what some
Okay.
of our commenters are saying. Coming from a minority myself, but appearing white, I live the anti-racism way of life. Wow. What an interesting comment. And please say more about that. I would love to hear what exactly you mean by that. But I know from my own life, I am a bridge builder. I am often the only person who looks like me in places that I go. And so I'm constantly navigating different spaces. Catherine says, coming from a place of privilege, being white, we haven't had to fight for so much for things like women of color have had to. Plus, we've been more divided than we realize. Yes, Catherine,
Yes. That's right.
that is exactly right. And it's interesting. So many of my mentors were like, Karen, you really need to go back and look at history. Like, why did your ancestors leave Europe? What was going on in Europe? And I was like, my ancestors are the oppressors. I want to get as far away from them as
Yeah.
possible. I
Yeah.
don't want to know about my ancestors. But then when you hear about when so many people are saying the same thing, you're like, okay, maybe there is something to this. So
Yeah.
you go and you study what was going on in Europe before our ancestors left, why they left,
Mm.
and what they brought of those traditions and practices to this country. And you're like, damn, the witch hunt, you know,
Right.
accusing any woman who was like, I don't like this, this isn't right, there's a better way, of being a
She must
witch.
be a witch, right?
She must be a witch. Burning her at the stake in a public ceremony of violence to
Yeah.
which the entire community attended,
Yeah.
putting her kids in the front row to watch her burn.
Yeah.
What does that do to you? And all of
Right.
those practices are what they would later bring to America, both against white women, but then apply to torture, torment Black people,
That's right.
Native people. et cetera, et cetera.
That's right. And I think, Karen, I think that's a really important thing that sets a lot of your curriculum apart from other programs I participated in, because you do take us through the journey of where like white woman trauma comes from, and like what our generational trauma looks like, and how that then gets reapplied into harm for our Black and brown brothers and sisters. And it's such an important piece, because it, like you said at the beginning, understanding that our conditioning is just that, it's conditioning. We didn't have a say in it, we didn't have a choice. It's just what has happened over hundreds of years and got us to this place. But it is our responsibility now to take a look at it and really look inside ourselves and ask where it shows up, and make a choice to show up differently. I think that's
Th-
a really great thing about your programs. It's different.
Thank you so
Hmm.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Jenny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also want to go back to um, something I really appreciate about you is that, there were many, many, many white women who had that racial awakening in the summer of 2020. My phone was ringing on the off the
Mm.
hook. I must have been on 15 different podcasts. I was speaking all over the place. And then over time, it's
Yeah.
waned. And now, some of the organizations, like the CEOs for racial equity, that doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just totally gone. But I think, in my own anti-racist journey, when you first come to this realization, oh my God, this is terrible. Um, how could I have not seen this? I have to change this. I have to do everything. I call it the anti-racist puppy energy because you're
Yes.
like,
Oh my gosh, that's perfect.
you
Yes.
know,
And then this, and then I gotta sign up for this, and then I got, yes. Yep.
and we're gonna
Definitely done
end
that.
this tomorrow because this is wrong
You got it
and
right.
it's all gonna be gone. And then when the
I love that.
realization sinks in, okay, maybe this is a little more complicated.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe these structures have been in place for hundreds of years,
Yeah. Yeah.
all of these things. Then the puppies often get tired
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
move to the next thing. So I think I love the anti-racist puppy energy. I love it when I meet people who are in that stage because it like
Yes.
re-ups my energy.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important to like stay in. You can't just
Yeah.
hop in
You
and
have to
stay in.
find, right. You have to find the sustainable way for, and it's different for all of us, right?
Mhm.
I was talking to someone about this yesterday, like, because of what I tend to do is I tend to like jump in the deep end of the pool, and oh, I'm going to do this thing, and I'm just going to get in there and host this event or take this class or whatever. And then 3 weeks 4 weeks go by, and I'm like, okay, now I'm exhausted. I need to take a break for a minute, and then I pull back, and then I go and I jump in the deep end of another thing, and then I'm gonna get exhausted and I pull back, and it's like this whole cycle. And
Mm.
like I keep saying, and I don't know that it actually exists, but like if I could just find what I can keep doing, continually and sustainably, um, I think it's like that's the goal. I don't, it's like the work life balance. I don't know that that totally exists because you get inspired and you jump in and you want to do the things, and then you got to take a break for a little while, and then you jump in and do
Yes.
it again. So, but the point is, keep coming back. That's what I want to say. It's like just keep coming back, take your refresher sessions, and then jump back in when you're fresh, because it's really critical. And this is something I learned in one of the other organizations we were involved in, is like it's really important to make sure you are taking your rest and caring for yourself, because again, when we are in a moment of exhaustion and overwhelm, that's when it's really easy for our generational trauma to come out in a irresponsible way, and that's when we harm people of color. And so it's like, it feels weird to say like I got to self-care so that I can do anti-racism work, but it's so true. It's so
No,
true.
it is actually scientifically proven. Jennifer Eberhardt talks about this, the social psychologist at Stanford who wrote Biased, that our
Mm, mhm.
biases are most likely to be triggered when we are hangry,
Yeah,
tired,
yeah.
um, bombarded with too much information.
Mhm.
All of that is when our biases are most likely to kick in. So
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
not just imagining this. Self-care practices like getting enough rest,
Mhm.
eating 3 meals a day, going to exercise, all of those things allow us to be
Yeah,
much more better anti-racists. So it seems contradictory. Oh, I should
right.
punish myself and deprive myself so I can give more to others when in fact no, you
Yeah,
need to
yep.
replenish yourself so that
Right.
you can have the capacity to give
Right.
more to others. You can't be
Right.
generous with others without being generous to yourself.
That's right. The anti-racist puppy is exhausting sometimes.
Mm.
It gets exhausting.
Yeah.
But I think you gotta I love that, and I'm gonna use that and just, like, name it in myself. Be like, "Oh, this is the anti-racist puppy showing up." 'Cause it's so
Pet the
true.
puppy. The
That's
puppy is
right.
so
It's a nice it's
snuggly.
okay, it's okay. Ah, I love it.
Oh, so, let me see. There was something else that I wanted to say, and I don't remember what it was, but let's see what Catherine has to say
Yeah,
here.
she's posting good stuff.
I have lived and worked in rural India in human rights of women and youth, also in Zimbabwe and Kenya, Africa. We have a tendency to want to help and overthink that we know what they need. Oh my gosh. Thank you,
Right.
Catherine. White
Mhm,
saviorism.
mhm.
But it is very important to first just listen to them and ask a lot of questions. We cannot begin to help and understand their needs as well as their trauma without doing that process first.
That's right.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, it's all this process of learning how to relate across difference as
Mm,
equals
mhm.
and to
Yep.
not assume, "Oh, I know the solution to this," which I think is also an early stage anti-racist thing, right? Like, "Oh, I
Oh,
know
yeah.
how we can fix this."
Yeah.
"What?
Yep.
You just learned about this 5 minutes ago."
Right. Uh, yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about, like, what is one of the questions I'm supposed to ask you here? Why did you decide to become a part of the white women cohort and go to the interracial sisterhood retreat? What called you into that?
So one of the things coming out of, I would say the first couple years of work, I did the first couple years of work, I did all kind of individual learning path kind of things. Well, first I was in another white woman cohort, but then I just read everything I could read, watched everything I could watch, did all kind of self-led learning. And what I really loved about the interracial sisterhood retreat is that it was a way, oh, so I wanted to say this earlier too. In my life, like I am still primarily in 90 plus percent white spaces, in my job, in my social circle. And I've been through this work, I've really been craving to build authentic relationships with women of color, and not in a weird way, and not like I was like terrified of, I had this vision in my head of like walking up to a black woman and be like, "Do you want to be my friend?"
Yeah.
She'll be like, "What are you talking about?" Um, so
Great.
what, right? Like what I loved about the interracial sisterhood retreat is it was a chance to build community with women of all, melanation. Like I mean, there were white women, there were indigenous women, there were Mexican women, there were black women. Like it was just a fantastic experience to be in community with all those women and discussing all of the things across our commonalities and our differences, right? So it was a beautiful time, and I still stay in touch with a lot of those women today. And then the white women cohort kind of leading up to it again was sort of the foundation and the reminder of the history that white women have had that brought us here, and how we can continue our work and how we're responsible for continuing our work in the anti-racist space. So I was tired of I felt like after doing all that individual work, I was like, okay, well, this word ally is getting thrown out around a lot, and that's good. I mean, allies are great, but when I heard the word anti-racist accomplice, it's so much more action oriented. Like ally is awesome, but it's a little passive, right? It's a passive word. Accomplice means I am out there with you. I will march with you. I will hold your hand, and we will do this thing together. So that I really wanted to take a more action stance as well. And that was another thing that led me to the program.
Yes, I think,
Yeah.
and I don't use those words. I don't call myself an ally or an accomplice because I don't think those are things that we can call ourselves or
Mm,
as
mhm.
white women can teach other white women how to be. But like you, I love the concept of accomplice because
Yeah.
we have to be actively engaged in transgressing the system and
Right.
dismantling it both within ourselves and in the outside world, and we cannot do that in isolation. We can
That's right.
only do that in community, in coalition, and I feel like you know, I said earlier, my purpose in life is to help women unite, across difference so we can secure our collective safety
Mm,
and freedom, and preparing white women to be able to effectively unite by having a space for us as white women to process with each other all of these things
yeah.
so that we are not bringing that burden to our siblings, but we are doing our inner work in community with other white women.
Yes.
That allows us to show up in wholeness, in relationship, in right relationship, which then in turn, makes it possible for for us to be their accomplices.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember, this concept, Dr. Twyla Baker, I believe is her name, who's president of, a native university in North Dakota. She taught me this concept of translation exhaustion, which
Mm,
she defines as when white people finally show up to engage in activism and they expect the longtime organizers to explain the entire historical and present day context
yeah.
of whatever it is that they're working on. By the point they finish doing that, they are exhausted and
Mhm. Mhm.
you haven't even gotten to the action part yet.
Right.
So
Right.
let's take the translation exhaustion burden off
Yes.
by educating ourselves, not in isolation, but in community,
Yes.
so that when we show up, we can be, instead of
Yeah.
depleting energy, we can bring our energy, bring our resources, bring our
Yes.
networks, bring everything to the thing. Because one of the things that I always point to is social science research shows that white Americans' social networks are 90% white, which
Yep.
means that white Americans are exclusively exchanging our social capital with other white people.
That's right.
That is a huge,
That's
um,
right.
what that is a huge perpetrator, I guess is the right
Mhm.
word, reason for racial wealth gap. Like, if
Yeah.
I'm only hanging out with white people and I'm only telling white people about jobs at my company, internships available to young people at my company, oh, this great new school is opening up, whatever the case
Yes.
may be.
Yes. Yeah.
Other communities
That's
are
how it
not
happens.
sharing about those things.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly,
Hmm.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, that is how it happens. And but again, like, how do you build that authentic community? It's
Yes.
it's really it's really tough. And I want to acknowledge that. I believe it's really important. But like, I've always been so envious of your social circle is so amazing, and it's like every color of the rainbow, and you've been in that community for such a long time. And I mean, I crave that, and I want to
Mm.
find a way to build that more. I mean, that's again, that's a big reason I've been involved in a lot of your programs. And it's helped, because I find that I'm like, I think historically there's a lot of trepidation when white women show up in a black setting, or a setting with any person of color. There's a fear of like, oh God, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I mess it up? What if I, and as one of my friends tells me, she's like, but you're here and you're trying, so get in there, and that's and we'll correct you. She happens to be a wonderful woman of color in my neighborhood, and she's like, don't worry, like I'll tell you if you screw it up. And I was like, I know you will. I know you will. But that's so important to have that honest and open dialogue. And just like, my point here is just say, to tell white women, show up, bring your authentic self, bring your willingness to learn, understand that feelings will come up and those are okay, and just breathe into them, and keep your listening ears engaged. um, but it's just so important that we keep showing up.
Thank you, Jenny. And something you said really hit me is that you're in these all white social circles and you want to break out of them, but it seems so difficult to do. And it's by design. Why are we in all
Yeah.
white social circles? Well,
Yep.
because white supremacists designed segregated neighborhoods so that we would grow up in all white spaces,
Yeah.
and segregated schools so that we would
Yeah.
go
That's
to
right.
all white schools. So even when we live in diverse communities, we're inside of this white bubble. I for my
Yep.
old I did a LinkedIn live series called Collect Our Cousins, where I interviewed all kinds of white people. And I interviewed like a white 20 something boy, young man who grew up in an all white suburb of
Mm.
Denver. And he was talking about how kids growing up in suburbs don't have any place to hang out with each other. Like everybody has a great big house and a backyard and a basement,
Mm.
but there's no park. There's
Yeah.
no space where the kids can all be together. They can
Yeah.
only be either inside their house or inside someone else's house, but there's no like public or community space. And that really, really struck me that we
Yes.
need to have more of this common space to
Yeah.
meet each other that is racially integrated, and by
Yes.
design,
Yes.
those do not exist.
Right. That's right.
So we have to create those spaces ourselves. That's what I
Yeah.
see the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition. And also, even like, so within companies, right, you have employee resource groups and things of that. But what winds up happening is they're pitted against each other, right?
Hmm.
There's the women's employee resource group, which often is led by, dominated by white women, and women
Mm.
of color don't feel comfortable in there. And then there's the Black employee resource group, the Latino, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
instead of like, let's all come together
Right.
and advocate for each other and really dismantle the system, instead
Right.
it's like, let's all compete against each other
Mm.
for promotions or resources or
Hmm.
whatnot. And I think it's like yet another tool of the patriarchy, white supremacy, to keep us divided from each other
100%. Yeah.
in 2025.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Um,
Um, yeah. Go
oh,
ahead.
Oh, no, you say something.
Oh, no, I was just gonna I think we were both gonna look at the comment that Kate
Yes.
dropped in there, yeah.
Okay, Kate Zarowitz, Polish Ukrainian Jew here. Non-religious. Being Jewish is an ethnicity and or a religion. I don't practice any religion and my blood shows I am proudly an Ashkenazi Jew. Being able to almost hide who I am has led to some amazing and painful conversations with my Black girlfriends.
Mm.
Thank you for sharing that, Kate. Yes. Um, yeah, because I know a lot of my Black friends will say to me, "I can't ever hide this."
I
Like,
can't this is a mask I can't take off. Right.
yes.
Right, like, we have the honor we have the honor, yeah, and the privilege of being able to just move about and not think about our skin color or our racial identity much. And it's, I had a, really powerful conversation with a young Black man who is a park ranger at the, oh my gosh, the Brown v. Board of Education, National Monument
Oh,
in
wow.
Kansas. I'm forgetting Topeka, maybe? I can't remember the name now. That's escaping me. But I had a after we walked, I was there with my friend and her kids, and we had a really powerful conversation, he and I just asked him like, how are you working here? Is this a challenge for you because there's a part of your uniform that you can't take off? And he was like, that's a really interesting question, and I do find that I have to sort of step away sometimes and just kind of refresh. But I think it's once you start doing this work, that was a big moment for me. I remember when I realized that I don't have to think about it. Like I literally don't think about my racial identity, and that is not the case for so many people. So it's really a true fact.
Yes,
So
I mean, that is th I had that exact so, when I first moved to New York City, people would ask me, "What are you?" And I was like, "I'm an Aquarius?" Like, I don't know I didn't know
yeah,
what they were
yeah,
asking me.
right.
I was
What
like,
do
"What
I
do you
say?
mean, what am
Right.
I?" And it was only later that I realized they were asking me for my ethnic identity because
Mm,
people
mhm.
in New York, white people, are, "Oh, I'm Italian, I'm
Yeah,
Irish, I'm this,
yeah,
I'm that." But growing up in Colorado, I
yeah.
never thought about
Mhm,
myself in those
mhm.
terms.
Yeah.
I never thought about being white. White was just normal, and you realize, like, what that is so, what is the right word? I don't know if crazy is the right word, but that is just so
It just
how
kinda blows your mind
it
when
blows
you
your mind,
realize
that's
yeah,
it, that's
it
basically
does.
it. It blows
Yeah.
your mind when you realize I am part of the dominant group. I have been led to believe that I am normal. There is no normal, and basically everything I have learned from the people that I love the most is a big fat lie, and I
Yeah,
have to spend the
yeah.
rest of my life trying to unlearn
Gotta
it, and you're like,
dismantle that.
"Whoa, this
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
a lot to
It's a lot.
process over
Yeah.
here."
Yeah.
Let's see,
That is
coming
a
from the
lot.
other side, it's encouraging to hear this dialogue. I would echo these thoughts you have shared. When you go to spaces where you're not the majority, please put yourself on
Mm.
time out for a few moments. Resist the urge to centerpiece yourself and just observe it first. Thank you so much for
Gosh.
this. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah,
Pause.
because part of our conditioning is definitely that centering, and it's the, "Well, no one else is doing it, so I have to step in and take care of it." And it's like, actually, you can just give space to other folks for a second and not center yourself. That was a big surprise to me too in my journey, was just the how much we are conditioned that that's what being a strong woman looks like. Well, that's what being a strong white woman looks like, but nobody uses the clarifier, right?
Yes.
But it's like that's what we got conditioned, that you have to step in and take control at all times. And I
Do,
think
do,
it's
do, do, do.
yeah, yeah, and it's so important to just pause for a moment. So thank you for that comment. That was great.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And I also, earlier in my journey, I wanted to be the cool white woman. I wanted to be the
Oh,
exceptional white
yes.
woman, the only white woman.
Oh, yes.
I'm cooler than the other white women because look, all these people know
Mhm.
me, like me, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, yeah.
That is white supremacy too.
Yes, yes. That's right. That's right. Yeah. What was the 7 poisons of white supremacy? And I like there was
Yes.
I need to find that,
Yes.
I mean, there's a meme about it, but I know we studied it in one of our courses together, and now it's like it's escaping me. But it again, look, once you learn about the pillars of white supremacy and the conditioning that we've all gone through, it's like, wow, it hits you again, mind-blowing moment. You're like, how have I not seen it? Now that I see it, I will never unsee it again.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
fascinating.
Tama
Yeah.
Okun. Thank you, Tama,
Yes,
for
yes, thank
naming
you.
those. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
I
there
love it.
we okay, we have,
There's a
let's
couple.
see. Unfortunately, as a Black women, some of these spaces that are assigned to us aren't even led by us because we aren't allowed in the upper levels. Thank you,
That's
Alicia.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's
it's so
another
true.
way of control,
Mm,
right?
mhm. Yep, absolutely.
I love that comment. We have a tendency to think we know more than we do. We need to shut up more and listen and ask questions for understanding and
Yes.
just slow the heck
Slow
down.
down. Yes,
Slow down.
yes.
And I think like for me, the anti-racism, a lot of it is intellectual. Like I mean, obviously I love
Yeah.
reading books and doing, going to hear people when they come to speak. And I love the intellectual part of it. But so much of the anti racism journey is about our energy, it's about our body language, it's about,
Yes,
what are we bringing to the space? And so much of the healing has to take
yes.
place with bringing our energy, like slowing our energy down and, um, and just practicing self-compassion too, because we cannot be empathetic toward others
Mm,
without being empathetic, compassionate to ourselves.
that's right.
Yeah.
Mistakes will happen. Like, you will absolutely trip up. I mean, in any relationship, somebody gets hurt from time to time. It's about what happens after the hurt.
Yes.
If
Yes.
someone tells you how you've messed up, listen to them. Ask questions, investigate internally, but then come back to it. Like, if you need to lick your wounds for a second, that's totally fine, but just come back.
Yes.
Just come back.
And the first words out of your mouth should be, "Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for pointing this
That's
out
right.
to me. I'm gonna
That's right.
sit with what you had to say and do better next time."
Mhm. Yeah. So
So
important.
so I think we're rounding out our time together. Are there any, things you would like to say about how you have grown as a result of our work together, or, um, how you continue this work in your daily life?
Yeah, I think the comment that was made about decentering myself, that was a big aha moment for me, is realizing how I was centering myself in a lot of different spaces. And just that it's okay to slow down for a second and invite the other opinions in. We don't have to we don't have to just go, go, go like we've been conditioned to do, especially when you're talking about conversations of history, the history and harm that has taken place. I think I've also struggled to let go of my own perfectionism, because that's
Mm.
another tool of white supremacy, and understanding that when I feel it showing up for myself, take a beat, and again asking myself where it's coming from, and if it's truly necessary. Sometimes it's a helpful tool, but a lot of times it's our conditioning showing up. It's that muscle memory kicking in and taking over. And I think, one of the things, so I talked about how for a time there I was just sort of doing my own intellectual work, which is really important.
Yes.
But at some point you have to move from that kind of intellectual understanding into the action and the responsibility of, okay, now what am I going to do with this? Um,
Yes.
and taking the risks and holding yourself accountable and just showing up as much as you can where you can. Um,
Correct. In your local neighborhood is the
yeah,
best place to start, right?
yeah,
The I learned so much from Frederick Douglass, and he says,
mm,
"Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, it never
mm,
will, and he who would be free himself has to strike the first blow." Like, no one's gonna
yes,
come in, no one
yes,
in a position of power is ever gonna change white supremacy and patriarchy
that's
because
right,
they benefit from it.
that's
So
right,
it's on us to unite across difference and put pressure on them
that's
to
right.
change. And the place where we can put the most pressure is at our PTA meeting, at
Hmm.
our school board meeting, at our community meeting to take on
Yes,
whatever issue in our, and as we start to build connection with our shared interest of changing these policies, that is what is gonna,
mm,
like, cause white supremacy to
that's
crumble.
right.
It's never gonna come from the top.
That's right, and I think the organizers of the No Kings rally last weekend are doing really great work, and they're bringing a lot of organizations together. And if you Google No Kings, you'll find all of their resources. But you can literally sign up at their website. You can sign up for like a multitude of different action organizations,
Yes.
whatever floats your boat. So you can organize them on kind of a large scale, but then your community organization is so important too. Like that's where it has to happen, is within our communities. And just, I think the thing that I try to remind other white women friends, like if white women friends ask me questions about like, well, doesn't it mean less for us, or like what does that look like long term? And like one of my favorite quotes is, when you're coming from a place of privilege, equality feels like oppression. It's not oppression.
Mhm. It's not
It's
oppression.
not oppression. We've been in a close proximity to power for a long time. Helping distribute that power, it's not pie. There's not an infinite amount. Helping to distribute that power means more for everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's so
Thank you,
important.
Jenny, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's gonna be our first homework assignment
Oh,
for
great, great.
for, um, for the, Becoming Trustworthy is finding a political home. I cannot stress this
Awesome.
enough. Whether it's with one of these national organizations or with a local organization, this is a time when all concerned people have to find a political home and act in act in community with other
Yeah.
folks. So thank you so much to everyone who has turned out. I really
Thanks so much, Karen.
appreciate it. I really appreciate everything that people shared. I love that comment. We have a tendency to think we know more than we do. We need to shut up more and listen and ask questions for understanding.
So
Thank
true.
you. Agree 100%, Catherine Kiley. Listen, if folks want to join the white women cohort, I believe I put it's called Becoming Trustworthy. I believe I put the contact information here. You can also join our online interracial sisterhood coalition online community. That information should be below. If you don't find it, let me know. You can also download our guide to interracial sisterhood. That information should be below. And when you download that, you sign up for our newsletter and you'll get 10 days of anti-racism tips, interracial sisterhood building tips in via email. So yeah, thank you. Any closing words, Jenny?
Nope. No, I don't think so. I think, thanks again for Karen for organizing this and for everyone who showed up and participated. And please, yeah, I think Erica says it well, like take it in, feel it, metabolize it, and figure out how to use it in your journey. But please use this conversation and use all of this going forward. And I know there are several on here who I know personally, so would love to talk more anytime about any of this.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Jenny, and likewise. Okay,
Thanks,
bye
Karen.
everybody. Have an
Bye
awesome,
bye.
awesome weekend and see you on the other side.
Bye.